What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and this was going to be another used bike review from Indian Motorcycle of Oklahoma City. However, this one got bought, luckily by somebody I know, so that way I can still ride it. This is going to be a 2022 Kawasaki Z900, and it is the 50th anniversary of the Z. Now, you may be wondering what that's there. I'll go over that in a moment. But as you can see, 2022, 1972, 2022. Beautiful coloration on this thing. Love the gold badging. Love the red and silver. And kind of dark bluish black accents. Good looking machine. Of course, an inline 4, ABS brakes. Pretty low mileage on it. Has a helmet lock right here. All the modern stuff. You have power modes and all the good stuff up here. I'll go ahead and go over this real quick on the deal. You do have fully adjustable shocks front and rear. Right now we're in road mode. Notice this thing will rev up to 10,500 RPM. Adjustable levers for both your brake and your clutch. Your engine cutoff switch and your starter is here. To scroll through the power mode, you do have a button over here. Make sure the motorcycle is stopped before you switch, because it does not like to switch on the fly. It would rather do it while sitting still, at a light in neutral. It seems like. I may not have conquered that yet, so, don't take that, completely. If you just hit your button here, you have two screens here that this little guy here will look at. You have your odometer, your trip A, your trip B, and back to your main odometer. Here you have your range, you have your average speed, total time, battery voltage, miles per gallon live, average miles per gallon, and back to the range again. So that's what that little guy does there. You do also have buttons that control that on the unit here, where you'll notice the left side one changes the odometer, and the right side one changes the bottom screen there. ABS light, service engine light, turn signals bright, neutral indication. Of course, you got a full gear counter over here on the left side as well. Battery, coolant, and oil pressure warning. Fuel gauge, tack on top, large in-your-face speedometer clock, and your coolant level. Flash to pass, brights here, turn signals left, right, push to cancel horn, and hazards on the left side. So pretty overall standard affair. You do have an automatic dimming system. I don't know if it's turned on right now, but I can get to that when needed. All right, so I have not actually rode a regular Z900 the whole time they've been out. And they've been out for quite a while. They replaced the Z1000, which I really liked. And then I never got a chance to really ride a true Z900 because I did the RS. And I'll show you why I don't do the regular Z900. So this is going to be the reason why. As you can see, I've mocked up my actual riding shoe here. It's a Vans MTE. It is size 14 US, so I have a massive foot. And you can see that the pedal box kind of, if I push it this way, push it that way, try to drop below, it's not really a comfortable way for me to get on here very easily. So you can see that if I'm riding in a normalish position, my foot's resting on this, this still gets hot, guys. I mean, it's a heat shield after all, but it does get hot enough to melt rubber. And you don't want to melt rubber on the back end of the exhaust. That's a no bueno kind of situation. You don't want to push it too far forward, because now you're riding on the brake, and every little bump you might be tapping it, and that wears the brakes out faster. If you push it to the side, then the very short drop down for my 32-inch inseam does not like this very well. So it doesn't do good at dropping down. So my only recourse is practically having my foot sticking out like this, where it's off to the side pretty good, kind of heel back over there. As you can see now, I'm missing it. and out to the side. So it's kind of a very awkward riding position for me. Left side's not a big deal. It's just here because of this exhaust pipe. The Z650 didn't bother me in that way. The Z400 didn't bother me in that way. But the Z900 particularly does bother me in that way, and I don't know why. But overall, still, we'll give her a ride because we want to ride every motorcycle that we possibly can. And if you've never actually used these, I'm not sponsored by Vans in any way, but in terms of like a motorcycle shoe, the Vans MTE is waterproof, it is cold proof, and it is very grippy on the bottom too. So these actually double as a motorcycle shoe better than most people would anticipate. I mean, they're stiff pretty decently. They're like a Dexter shoe from Cycle Gear. I think that's what they call them. But yeah, this is what I use because they're waterproof, they're windproof, you know, they're everything. So Vans, if you want to build a little bit more armored up in a size 14, because you guys seem to stop at 13 on most of your shoes, it's rare to find these guys. I'll be a willing foot to try it out on, and that way we can do a motorcycle shoe. But, you know, still very good if you're looking for something comfortable. I got a slightly different variant on my foot right now, but it takes me at least a year or two between shoes to find a size I actually am. So, kind of sucks. So, before we get to the ride, let me thank my sponsors real quick of the channel. We have AGVSportUSA. Makers of fine motorcycle gear. They're based out of Argyle, Texas, part of the Moto Monkey brand, and they've supplied us with our gear. I have this one as the Flex jacket. I also have the 130 flannel. They've updated to the 140. Eventually, I'm going to try to pick one of those up. Got several pairs of their gloves just on a mid-season. We're a little cooler today, so I'm going to need to wear my more appropriate gloves today. Also, I want to thank Law Tigers of Oklahoma for protecting the riders after the events of a wreck, fighting for us in the courtroom, but riding with us when we are out there together. And I want to thank Doug Crawford and USA Synthetics AMSOIL for protecting the internals of our engines with the AMSOIL product. Fantastic oils. They make everything for just about anything you can think of that needs lubrication. They've got it. So at any rate, let's hop on this thing and do a little bit of a ride. Alrighty, hopping on here. Seat height is not really intimidating or anything. I'm going to post all, of course, the pertinence in the description below. And that way you guys can have all the answers because I can't come up with them on the fly like I used to. I'm getting a little older here. But you can see I still have a bend in my leg, straight down to the ground. So overall, a good position. This does have an auto high idle feature when it's a cold start. This is just starting out for the morning, so like I said, we're a little cooler today. I think we're in the upper 40s right now, and yeah, just a little bit cooler. And you know, it's going to take a second for it to be happy, but I'm going to give her a little bit of a warm up. Mirrors are in a good position. When you're actually riding this thing, you are a little bit down. So you come down from your shoulder to your elbow and you got to bend down kind of a little bit into the bars. But one thing about these standard bikes, you get that wind coming into you that holds you up pretty well as a rider. And that goes a long way in terms of riding and everything like that. So overall, an okay position. Like I said, the one thing I have an issue with is I got to kind of stick out here. You know, it might be harder to see from this angle. That's why I did it with just the shoe. But I got to kick it out on this side only. This side over here is all right because there's nothing really bothering it, you know, except for a passenger peg, which in all reality, I can actually bridge that gap, kind of use that passenger peg as a heel rest if I wanted to. But I don't get in any way of the shifter or anything like that. Shifters are more adjustable too than your brake side too, so you can kind of make that work better for your foot. But you see, it's kind of an aggressive bend to the knee and down to the peg too, and it's very short. If I had a little bit more distance, I might be able to correct that issue with the right side over there on the brake side, but the exhaust is also there, and that's where that kind of comes in. So get a pretty good bend here. So You're bent forward, your shoulder's coming halfway between your knee and your hip, and your foot is coming back in line with your shoulder almost perfectly. So that's the overall riding position of this motorcycle. All right, she's backing off of her high idle, so she's getting ready. Getting pretty close there. Let me go ahead and buckle down the helmet here. And that way we're ready to roll. As always, Kawasaki transmissions, man, we love that positive neutral finder because they're one of the only companies that still puts the ball bearings down into the shifter, and that way it can grab into neutral a whole lot better when they fall down because they're no longer being controlled by centrifugal force. All right, heading out on this thing. We're going to have it in road mode at first. Another thing that Kawasaki does is they do have a little eco indicating thing that will pop up over here next to the fuel. Now, that's telling that you're riding in a fairly economical manner. So it's happy and getting a little bit better fuel economy. Now, in terms of the throttle response in road mode, this is the one I'm most familiar with right now. And of course, with these, it's a little bit different. Some of them, they just change the throttle response. Some are power. This one's throttle response because it's just saying road rain and all that good stuff. It's very smooth, man. You don't need much input into the throttle to get your speed up on this thing. Not one bit. I'm in fourth gear right now, pulling a little over 4,000 RPM at 45, 46 miles an hour. So this thing is barely chugging along. Actually, it's less than 4,500 RPM. Yeah, no, about 45. I'll say 45. But it's just barely chugging along. It doesn't have much to work with because this is a very light motorcycle and a very flickable chassis as well. It does very good. Let's do this engine braking test here. Slipper clutch, of course, so you can botch your downshifts. But this thing is very responsive, does really good on your throttle blips as well. So it's pretty dang happy when you're downshifting. As you can see, I hit a couple of bumps, and you can see that KTSC coming online, which is the traction control system, kind of limiting a little bit of what the throttle's going to do. So it takes a little bit of that bite out if you're bouncing around on some hard roads and you're hard accelerating, so it doesn't allow you to really take off. Of course, if you go through the menu structure, you can defeat most of these items if you want to, or changing your modes also changes how aggressive these settings are as well. And there is actually a rider customizable mode on this one as well, and you can kind of set it to how you want it for sure. See, good downshifts, nice crisp transmission, everything is just butter on this thing. No quick shifter on it, but I don't necessarily care about quick shifters. I'm not one that really likes some of the times they respond. Some of them are very clunky. The R1250 GSA, for instance, I'm not a fan of how BMW has that one because it just feels very, very clunky. Every time you upshift and downshift, I don't know. There's something about that one. But there are some that are good. Yamaha's MT-10 comes to mind on one that has a very good up and down quick shifter. And Moto Guzzi's was all right, especially on the up, a little bit iffy on the down, but it is their first one. I know Aprilia has it, but in terms of shifting, man, as long as you're smooth with it, you're gonna be fine. You can see I can shift up through the gears real easily, and as long as you got quick acting hands, you're not just babying it, you can shift just as fast as a quick shifter if you know what you're doing. And this bike welcomes that kind of flogging too, which is kind of fun. Boop. In terms of some of these bounces here, I don't have this thing on a preset, so I'm not going to take a full comment on how it feels. But I can tell you that it is a stiffer suspension. It's pretty sporty. And I bet I can work some of it out. I can feel the adjustability in there that will allow it to be a little bit softer for road use. But in overall condition, it works really well. All right, as you can see, I'm stopped, so I switched her to sport mode now. And that way we can hop up on the interstate with a little bit faster throttle response. Definitely don't feel any power difference in the engine, because like I said, this is more of a throttle response and how it works. Road mode is actually pretty dang good. It feels very even and very crisp. I don't feel like it needs to have a sport mode to be real, but let's find out what the difference is between the two of them. Very easy to 1-foot stop on this thing. Nice and balanced and pretty light. All right. Very quick acting. You can see the screen is telling me when to shift economically, but also that I'm going aggressive. But yeah, she gets up to speed pretty good. And you can feel that little bit of snippiness out of the sport mode. But my goodness, is this engine smooth as glass. One thing about Japanese inline fours are they are fantastic engines. I haven't met one I hate. They're one of the top 10 greatest things that bring humans pleasure, for sure. I don't know where it fits on that list, because to be honest, I like an American V-twin a little bit better, because I like that raw torque at the bottom end of everything and the way it can pull stumps and restart the world, turning in the event that it stops for some reason. But these things are fantastic. They're like bringing the sharpest knife to a machete fight. Like I said, I kind of like bludgeoning through everything, and that's why I like a good old American V-twin after all, because it feels like you're bringing a massive bludgeon into the whole ring. Not even a knife, just some sort of a stick with a freaking nail in it or something like that. You're coming in bludgeoning, whereas this thing is just such a fine scalpel and such an easy cutter. They're so smooth. The power is there, especially when you get above the mid-range. You can just rip on it and it travels up in speed real fast, and no complaint, just really clean acceleration. So very nice engine on this. The power is where you want it, especially above 4,000 RPM. You start to really feel it, and then 6,000 it just becomes a ripper. Got to slow that thing down a little bit. Engine braking on it is really good. And man, it's just a good overall feel. Out here on the interstate, we are heading directly into the wind today. I know we still don't quite have some foliage up, but we do have some pretty decent winds today. I think I'm coming into about 20 to 25 mile an hour straight into it. And the Z900 is handling it beautifully. It's cutting right through the wind and without any fuss. Of course, one thing I don't like is it doesn't have cruise control, and I'm kind of bougie now that I've got 2 motorcycles with it, and I use it quite frequently to keep my speed. But this one does not have that ability. And I do kind of slow down here and there, because you just kind of forget what you're doing, just because you don't really feel as much machine below you, because it is very, very smooth. The mirrors, I mean, those bounces are probably more my head on the suspension than the engine itself. So it is just such a silky, smooth machine. And it rides these open interstates really, really well too. Now, for my height, being 6 foot tall with a weird trunk that's really long and shortish legs, but 32-inch inseam, it still feels a little bit cramped, on longer rides, especially due to the foot size, because I've got that thing kicked out pretty sideways there, catching wind a little bit differently than I'm used to. But, it's something that over time, because I have to do that quite frequently, you get used to it. So, for me, I haven't rode this one yet for a very long distance, but I have got to ride them enough to know
how to handle the foot, how to handle the power, how to handle everything, and to understand how it operates. And it operates good. I mean, you cannot complain about what this thing is capable of. It is much more of a motorcycle than most people would ever actually use. And that says pretty much everything about most of these kind of motorcycles. These street fighters or nakeds or however you want to call them are just fantastic overall motorcycles, because they're not in such an aggressive position that you get tired. They're not so overly powerful that you start flying around like a flag off the back of it. You just can ride these things and crush some miles on them, believe it or not. I will say the stock seat's not the most padded, but the overall position with the angle that you have and the backstop that you have, you got plenty of room to move around the seat. I still have, even though I'm a kind of a bigger man here, I still can actually move forward and backwards a good 5 inches or so. So there's plenty of room on the main rider's seat. But I would say, feel sorry for any passenger, because it's a pretty aggressive angle with a pretty small pad back there. So I don't have a rider today that can confirm that, but nonetheless, I can already tell you that, you know, unless you're young and spry, you're probably not going to enjoy it back there. Just going through all this with all these bumps and construction and everything, you can hear a little chop in my voice. Like I said, it needs a little bit of tuning for my performance and taste. But my goodness gracious, does she pull out of the construction zone and get up to speed really fast. Don't even have to drop a gear on this thing. It's got good pulling power. I'm already in 6th gear. Oh, forgot to mention, here at 75 miles an hour, you're right at 5,000 to 5,200. Just kind of depending on where your wrist lands. And, you know, so you're not really taxing it here still, because you still got all the way up to 10.5. So you're only halfway through the rev range. The theoretical top speed on these motorcycles is around 155. So plenty of room to get you in trouble. So that's something to note there. Like I said, I can't remember to hold on very well for some reason. Usually I'm better at this, but this engine doesn't communicate as well as some of the others. If I'm on an engine that communicates really well with me, I know where it's at just by feel, but this thing feels the same at 76 as it does 80 as it does 100. It's so dadgum smooth. It takes a little bit of communication out of the engine and machine to you as the rider. Now, in terms of the steerability and the flickability, it's fantastic. We're going to get up on this road here in a moment and do some of these fantastic turns, the only ones we really have in central Oklahoma by Skeleton Creek here in Guthrie. But any other road I have to go like 2 hours or more for. So we're going to take you guys up there and let you know. Now, one thing I can't comment on right now is the heat. This thing right now is, of course, traveling in a temperature that's between 49 to 53, somewhere in there. I'd have to see an actual thermometer gauge somewhere that tells me the temp. So I'm not getting much heat out of it, even though I'm getting direct wind blown into me. Like I said, northbound winds today, going northbound right now. But you notice I'm very stable. The motorcycle doesn't get tossed around by wind, so that's always a good thing. And you know, I just don't feel heat coming off of it, even though I'm showing engine temperatures of around 138 to 140. Of course, that is a lot colder than Indian's own FTR, which will travel up to usually the 160s to even 170s range in normal operating temperature. The one thing about the FTR is it does get hot. So that is a good to note thing. Of course, we have 2 Nissan branded stoppers up front, 1 Nissan branded in the back, grabbing on to disc brakes, vented, and it has very good feel in terms of braking. But I did most of that downshifting and engine braking with a little bit of rear brake to add the light for presentation, because this thing really engine brakes really well. I just wish the engine communicated how it was engine braking to you, because you can just kind of feel it back off a little bit and you've already backed off like 10 miles an hour and you don't even realize it. Because like I said, that engine feels pretty much the same no matter where you are in the range. It doesn't really feel like it gets bogged down or bothered by much of anything. It just makes power pretty good, actually, overall. Mirrors overall are very good visibility. Got to work on this one a little bit, but I got that one in a very happy position. Don't really see too much of myself in there. I've got a pretty good elbow picture on the left side, mostly out of the right side. That's why I was trying to get that one a little bit better, just a little. Now, here we go again on that engine braking. Like I said, it backs off real nicely. Downshifts are crisp. Very good to time your throttle blip with. It makes for very smooth transitions in your shifting. Good overall visibility off the motorcycle because the position isn't that aggressive, so you're up and you can look around really well. You can see down the neighborhood streets as you're going around. Like I said, I'm trying to keep the speed down, but this thing wants to go places that I shouldn't be trying to go, because it just so easily picks up its speed. Now, if you watch, I'm going to try to put her back into road mode here. There we go. To get it to fully commit, pull in the clutch, and now you're committed into it. That's why I recommend doing that at a stop, so you don't have to try to look at it to make sure you got there and then do the clutch pull and all that good stuff to confirm. Better to do it if you're stopped and you're about to go somewhere. Switch it to the mode you want then. That does help it go through this town a little bit better, because it takes a little bit of that edge off of that speed and throttle response, so I can kind of hold it a little better. But like I said, it's faster, but not faster enough. They're pretty close together between road and street mode, or yeah, road and sport mode, excuse me. Like I said, most of this is almost done completely with engine braking to get down to a stop. You can see coming up here, you can keep it nice and balanced. You can get really slow, then you can put your foot down. Very easy to get to the ground with this bike. Not much obstruction in the way on that left side. And away we go again. Again, can't really comment on the heat because I just don't feel any right now. Despite being stopped at the light there for a second and coming down the interstate and getting her heated up really well, it's just I don't feel much of anything on this thing right now. Again, we're taking some pretty significant bumps on this broken pavement here. It's a little stiff for it, but I think I can get it adjusted for a good around town bike, and I can definitely get it for a track bike. That's for dang sure. It will tighten up real nice too. I can just feel the communication from the suspension, and I know how much more adjustability it's got. It's got quite a bit. But again, this is not mine, so I am not going to turn it to mine. I will let the owner decide how he wants to set up his suspension, because that's the right thing to do. Alrighty. Again, you can see that KTSC kicking in there as I hit some bumps and was putting some power back into her. She gets a little angry there, but overall not too bad at all. All right, back-to-back highway speeds for Oklahoma, which is about 65 miles an hour. Got to get him get turned. There we go. Right at about 4,200 RPM again in 6th gear. So same as 45 and 5th. Again, I always forget. Here we go. Good test of wind blast as we got a semi coming straight at us on a 2-lane. I will actually keep LP1 this time. Let her smack. You can see a little wobble back and forth, but actually handled that rather well. This bike actually cuts the wind very good. It's quite a bit better than some of the others I've been on as of late. Despite this thing being so light, it just handles the road so well. See, she gets up to speed really nicely. Has a long 3rd gear if you wanted it. 3rd gear is definitely one of your better accelerating gears here. Yeah, it's just very easy on the handlebars. Don't have to put much pressure on it. And it responds real nicely. It almost thinks for you. Got another semi pulling out here, and I'll go ahead and bounce on over to LP3. Just rider tips for you if you want to avoid some wind blast. Of course, he's not going that fast right now to produce it. He just pulled out, so all good there. All right. Got some dust on the road. Let me get the tires scrubbed up a little bit. Get ready for some of the bigger turns. This isn't one of them, but rather be ready. But as you can see, this thing just flicks very easily. Put your body into it, put your hip into it. The bike really responds very nice transitionally too. No binding or whining or anything about it. It just wants to go. Now, as you'll notice, I'm trying to go in the sport mode. It won't do it right now. So I can downgrade, but I can't upgrade at speed. Pretty sure I'd have to roll off the throttle, hold it. Let's see if it changes. There it went. Clutch in, and away we go. Now we're back in sport mode. So like I said, you got to be off the throttle. It won't do it on active throttle. Looks like you can downgrade it, but you can't upgrade it because they expect it to throw you off. But you know, I can feel the difference, but it's not major enough to have that feature. Especially if you got to pull the clutch in to make sure it sets. So. You know. Don't you all just love a wide open road for no particular reason on a Monday morning, afternoonish? I don't know if that clock's right. I didn't check it. That way you have it all to yourself and you can goof off a little bit more. Now the one thing I do worry about is because my foot's out to the side there, when I start getting into these right-handers, will I hit my toe before I get to the peg, or will we be good? We'll find out here in a moment. Of course, I don't think these can get the speed that this thing would require to put its peg down. That's for sure. They're pretty good, but they're not that great. All right, so we have taken her through the cities, stop and go. We've done the interstate. Now we're going to try to do some back road twisties. Skeleton Creek Pass is what I like to call this on Highway 77 northbound out of Guthrie, because it traces the creek that's going to be alongside us here in a moment. And it gives us a little bit more fun here than we're normally accustomed to. Yeah, this puppy is planted. We're got good speed on her. And we're actually coming out at a little bit higher speed even. She plants real well. She doesn't get down low. She's got plenty more to go in terms of what she can do. But her transitions are crisp. Her speed is beautiful through these right now. Oh, this is pretty fun right here. Definitely not using the potential. This is one of those bikes that has way more potential than anything Central Oklahoma can offer. We need better roads, but I live in a flat plain. What can I expect? But yeah, she does really well through these for sure. And she's very communicative in her speech through the suspension and everything. So very well planted even on a broken highway with some pretty good little bumps in there in the middle of the turn. She stays very planted and her suspension's communicating as to where the tires are, what they're doing, if they're slipping. So that's a good feature to have, is to be able to feel everything through. There are some motorcycles you can't feel any of that, and so you don't know exactly how well you're sticking, and it doesn't give you confidence. But this one is definitely confidence inspiring. Great performance through there. Great performance overall, man. This thing is a good all-around motorcycle. I will say that after being on it for 30-40 minutes or whatever it's been, yeah, I'm not a fan of the position overall, just because it's a little too compact for me. Even though I got plenty of movement on the seat still, it's just my legs right now, especially this hip over here on my right side, is getting a little tinge to it. And that tends to happen on motorcycles like this. Usually I can make these about an hour, hour and a half, and I'm done. Whereas other motorcycles that I've been on, especially my Moto Guzzi, for instance, I literally rode all the way to Texas in about 2.5, 3 hours out there with no stops, and it didn't bother me at all. I had to stop for gas there, and then I hopped back on her and rode around a little bit and came back. Another 3 to 4 hours on the bike there, and had no problems transitioning between riding and walking. This one, I would definitely have some problems in those transitions between riding and walking again, because it just doesn't overall fit me that well. But does that take it away from being a great bike? No, it does not. So everybody's body is different, and this thing is really well done, really well put together, comfortable to ride, very stable, nice big gas tank with big insets, so that way you can lay on her, you can get her down there, you can get your turns in, and kick off of her. I mean, she's great. She responds to hip movement, she responds to foot, just putting your foot down a little bit on her and giving her a little bit more, ugga-dugga from your own legs and stuff. I mean, everything that you do communicates into the steering of this motorcycle, which everything to the road, you can feel and tell what it's doing and know that you're riding a solid platform. The only ho-hum I have about it is that although I love the inline 4 engines, they're always so smooth that they just don't quite communicate to me what their intentions are, like the engine itself. So I have a harder time indexing where I'm at because, like I said, from 4,000, I mean, if I even crank it right now and I'm getting up to over 6,000 RPM and gaining that speed, I really don't feel a massive difference except for wind noise, you know? And that, some people love that. I particularly want a little more communication from my motorcycle. And that's about the only complaint I have with her. Overall though, fantastic rider. You know, I love the Z900 RS, same engine, but a more comfortable platform for me. And that's one of those UJM all-around kind of motorcycles, more flat seating position with a flat seat. I have way more room. I also have no weird foot sticking out the side thing that I got going on here. And I don't have the, you know, leg being crunched up here. So that's why I would prefer the Z900 over this one, because I get this engine, I get the build quality, and I get the communication to the road that this bike has, but it's more comfortable. But I would still, if you're a person that loves hyper nakeds, or however they want to call these right now, this is a good place to be. So at any rate, this is the Rabid Hedgehog, and once again, this is the ride of the 2022 Kawasaki Z900 50th Anniversary Edition. The Z-Bikes have been with us for a long time for a very good reason, because they are a great overall motorcycle and a great ride all together. So at any rate, keep that shiny side up, folks, and we will catch you on the next ride.